Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome everyone here to this face-to-face meeting of North Somerset Council in the new council chamber. There is an option to join the meeting by Microsoft Teams for those members and officers who are unable to attend in person, and I believe we may have some. Have we got anybody attending via Teams? Councillor Crockford-Hawley. Okay, thank you. They will be able to partake in the debate remotely, but they will not be in attendance formally. And members joining remotely will not be able to vote, nor count towards the quorum of the meeting. We are streaming today's meeting live on the internet, and a recorded version will be available to view within 48 hours on the North Somerset Council website. Just like to remind you that unfortunately a number of microphones in the chamber are not working, and they need to share with a neighbour. I believe they've got a little black and yellow sticky bit over them, so you can't operate them anyway. We have got a new project to replace the system that's underway. So I'd like to go to agenda item number 1, which is public participation, and I believe we have one speaker today, who is Mr. Joe Tristram, on behalf of the Bus Franchise Campaign Group. If I could ask you to come over here.
So is this one of the microphones that works? Yes, it is. Good. Dr. Havison, members of North Somerset Council, thank you very much for giving me a few minutes to speak to you this evening on the subject, the idea of bus franchising. I heard about this idea almost a year ago when I became aware that there was a campaign, and as far as I'm concerned, a local campaign, but I think there is a wider one, to ask the local authorities in our area to suspend the deregulated bus market and provide a franchised bus service which the local authority would be in charge of. This idea seemed to me to have a lot of merit. At the moment, the bus company, First Bus, can decide to cut whatever service it wants, with North Somerset Council having only a very small amount of control over a few routes. The way that power is devolved to the private bus industry means that the system is not fit for purpose, depending on what we think its purpose is. Do we think it's there to provide a reliable and affordable bus service for the benefit of everyone in the region? Well, it doesn't. Private bus companies are profit-driven. Of course they are. That is their reason, their justification for existence. When there are falling passenger numbers, rising fuel and wage costs, which make it much more difficult to make a profit, they're going to cut loss-making services and keep the profitable ones. When I've run a business, I would have felt the need to do similar things. But in the sort of business that I used to run, it was possible to take an overall view, to say that although this particular part of the business isn't profit-making, or maybe not profit-making at the moment, it's part of what we do. It's part of how people see us. It's maybe even just a very important service, something we believe in, so we're going to subsidize it from the rest. The First Bus website describes their business as resilient in the current climate. Their share price is very stable. They're a good investment. So for their real stakeholders, that's to say their shareholders, they are doing what they should be doing. One route or another makes no difference to them. One village or another without public transport, the same. It makes no difference to the shareholders. They don't even know about it. Of course they don't. As we all know, for their other stakeholders, the travelling customers, this is not so. Our villages, Banwell, Winscombe and Sandford, lost the bus into Bristol some long time ago, and more recently our bus into Wells. Now all we have is a 2-hourly service that goes between Weston and Rington. Actually, that's a lot more useful than I imagined it was going to be, and it's pretty well used. But it's a lot less than we're used to, and it means there are a lot of places that people need to get to that they can't get to by bus. The Bus Service Improvement Plan, which this council has negotiated with First Bus, as I understand it using some central government money that became available at the end of the COVID grants, is in many ways very good. I've read through the pretty lengthy document that describes it. But it is only good for those living on the major routes that it's going to service. It misses out entirely large swathes of our very rural district. The on-demand buses, which I gather are due to start in April, also sound great. And I'm told that in some other parts of the country, where they've been running for some time, they can work well, although they are about twice as expensive to run as other forms of bus service. Many people I speak to in our villages are really looking forward to the on-demand bus services, and I hope that these things work well. But they aren't enough. Overall, what are we facing on the roads? Increasing amounts of car traffic, the occasional extra road here or there, such as the Balmoral bypass, which can make a small, temporary and very local difference, and the knowledge that all of this is contributing to our carbon footprint. North Somerset is committed to being carbon neutral by 2030, which is brilliant. Go North Somerset, and it's a tall order. Transport is our district's biggest single contributor to CO2, and compelling people, which is only the people who can afford to do it, into their cars, is not helpful to this goal. I ask you as a council to consider taking over the bus franchise so that this council would be properly in charge of this significant part of the lives of local people that is also a very significant part of our CO2 output. I know that the BSIP and the on-demand bus services are about to start, and I look forward to hearing that they're successful, but it isn't ambitious enough. Spending that same money on being in charge of the bus services, of you people being in charge of the bus services, so that you're really answerable for the things that the council say they have responsibility for, would be standing up for your zero carbon commitment and for the people of North Somerset. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. That's given us food for thought, I hope. Okay, agenda item number 2. Have we got apologies for absence so far?
Chairperson, the following have given apologies in advance. Councillors Bird, Codling, Goddard, Holland, Shopland and Willis.
Okay, thank you. And item number 3, are there any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interest?
Seeing none, Chairperson.
Okay. So item number 4 is the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting from the 10th of January. Note there was a minor amendment under question appendix, under question 7, paragraph 4, and I believe that's been amended. Are there any other issues? No other amendments. Okay, I'm happy to sign those then. Can you move to approve? Leader?
Thank you, Chairperson. Yep, all on the record, move to approve.
Councillor Cartman, seconding. All those in favour?
That's carried.
Thank you. Item number 5, I believe, is reports and matters referred from the executive, which was held on the 8th of February 23. I'm suggesting that item 5.1 and item 6 are dealt with together because both items make recommendations on the revenue budget, and I believe that this is going to be presented by, hang on a minute, by Councillor Cartman. Thank you. I just need to point out that the update report that includes a precept from some external authorities like Fire Authority, Environment Agency, and the Internal Dredging Board are given in an appendix or update at the end of the minutes because they arrived very late and couldn't be included in the original draft. So, Councillor Cartman, up to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like, as you said, I'd like to take items 5 and 6 together, make a few introductory remarks, and then go from there. It's a lot of pages. You'll see it's over 500 pages, so I want to thank the finance team and the council staff for the hours and hours and weeks of work that's gone into that. This is the fourth and, of course, final kind of budget setting that we'll do for this council. In fact, it's the last one. And I was just reflecting, looking back over those last 4 years and feeling that we can be very proud of what we've achieved. We've come a long way. There's a long way to go. And those 4 years have been, difficult. We've had COVID, which was really very challenging. And for many of us, we were new in 2019. And to be honest, didn't expect to get elected, let alone to be in an administration running the council. I don't know how other people feel. But I think from the start, we did have a desire to be different. And we wanted to have a new way of being, and we came up with the idea of being open, fair and green, and that has guided us in terms of the budget that we've set. What we really wanted to be was to be different from what came before us. We wanted to protect, not cut, to listen and not ignore. And I think we've largely succeeded. We've had challenges, but despite what some said at the time, it has not been a coalition of chaos. It did not dissolve into arguments and acrimony. In fact, our differences have become our very strength, I think. And we have shown that a new style of politics is actually possible, a politics of collaboration, cross-party working, compromise, and the contrast to what's happening in our national government couldn't be more stark. And I think this plays out in terms of the way we've set this budget. This has been a long process in the context of what's going on and the financial constraints that we face, not only as a council, but as a nation at the moment. And in that way, we've not shied away from difficult decisions. We have debated, we've listened, we've compromised, and we've changed our minds in response to what people have said to us. And I think that goes to the strength we are. Now, there's a lot of pages I've said in the report, but the themes remain the same that guide us in terms of when we do this, to be open, fair, and to be green, to protect the services that the most vulnerable of our citizens rely on. I suppose key points to highlight before I open up to questions was that we are proposing a 4.99% rise in council tax. I believe this is the same as all our neighbouring authorities, and it still leaves us, as we've often said, with, again, the lowest council tax, lower council tax than all our neighbours. We do continue to prioritise the protection of core services as far as possible and to achieve the efficiencies where we can in terms of delivering good value for money to the taxpayers. It does mean this year, with rising costs and demands, for the first time ever, as a council, our net expenditure is over £200 million. So it's a lot of money. But within that, and to achieve that, even next year, we're delivering £10 million of efficiencies. We continue to have an ambitious capital programme, and I'm sure we're all aware of the great work that's happening with BSIT, the ongoing kind of work that's happening with the Portishead Railway that spans more than this administration and many administrations, and the great work that's gone on over a number of years. And we've got improvements to the road network, green initiatives, and schools expansion on the list as well. And we also remain successful in winning inward investment. And I was totting up, and to my calculations over the last year, we have either announced or won £100 million worth of inward investment into North Somerset. That's almost £1,000 for every household. I mean, that's an incredible achievement, and really we should all be proud of that as a council, as should the council staff. So I think at that point, I'm not going to go on much more. I think I'd like to open to kind of questions and debate, and once we've gone through that, perhaps we can move to the recommendations in section 6 for the council tax precept setting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cartman. Before we go on to the debate, if there is any, just like to remind members that Standing Order 22A requires that a named vote is taken on this issue. So are there any comments, questions? Councillor Ashton.
I suppose I had to really, didn't I? I was gobsmacked by how well you've done over the last 4 years. It obviously passed me by somehow. But I do say thank you for saying how well the Conservative government has given you so much money. You couldn't have done it without them. But I'm sorry, I know it's difficult, I really do, but I can't support this budget for a number of reasons. I said 4 years ago that you will never have enough money to do everything you want or what everybody else wants in your executive, and I think that's been proven. We'd been criticised when we put up council tax, but then recently we've been criticised for not putting up as much as we could have done over those last 12 years. In the last 4 years, it's gone up by 18%, despite having more funding than local government ever received before. Departments can always spend more. You've been told that several times now. And on vital services, not wasted, on vital services, but it has to come from somewhere, and it's not down to the finance exec or his team, as Councillor Petty seemed to think. It takes difficult decisions from everybody that none of us want to make, I understand that, but no central government has ever or will ever give local government enough money. Local government is now more than ever about providing statutory services and not imposing on our residents pet ideological policies diverting funds and officer time that even members of the exec have told me they didn't agree with but had to support in a coalition. I'm sorry, just saying climate change every time does not reduce the need to provide other more immediate services. A few specifics in the budget, and I'm not expecting answers, it's just my comments on them. Care services, which are demand-led, obviously, and can be very volatile, both adults and children. I don't think there's enough in the budget for childcare, should we see any rise at all in numbers. And in adult care, clearly nationally, we all have to look at improving salary levels and terms of conditions of work in order to retain workers as well as attract new people into the profession. It's just going to get harder over the next few years. I know you've added extra this year into the budget, but that's not going to be enough, long term, when all councils are looking for more carers. We're going to be in competition over the next few years until more people are attracted into the profession. Should either of these areas need increased budgets, you will have no option other than to fund it. But where is it coming from? I don't see any contingency other than using more one-off reserves or borrowing more money, which is unsustainable. Vacancy management and staff reductions, often a false economy, especially at a time when many staff are already being stretched. For example, planning, we have some excellent experienced officers, but it now takes weeks and months and time extensions to get through their workloads. And enforcement has hundreds of ongoing cases. Too many people are working from home. I'm sure it suits many roles, and we will probably never want to go back to how it was, but it cannot stay the way it is. Some staff told me they miss working with colleagues, but they were asked to stay away. There is a loss of corporate knowledge within teams, across departments and between partners. That is inefficient and costly. Part of many jobs is to be available to members of the public, colleagues and councillors. We have all had problems getting hold of the correct person. A 10-minute conversation is much more efficient and cheaper than endless emails. Copying directors into everything so you get a reply is not a cost saving. So you're now going to close Castlewood to make it even harder for many in the north. There is a chronic shortage of drivers nationally and across a number of our services as well. Home to school transport is totally unreliable, not just late, but not turning up at all, leaving children stranded and late for school. Bus companies are reducing routes and also shorter drivers. I think on the news last night it was routes down 30% in Bristol and 40% in Somerset, I think it was. So we are going to put in more bus lanes. Exasperated residents and visitors stuck in single lanes next to an empty bus lane that they didn't ask for. One example, Portbury 100 will be gridlocked around junction 19, throughout Portbury and into Portishead. That's not even green, is it? Late for work or taking the kids to school or doctor's appointments, don't even think about driving down the empty bus lane. There'll be 44 cameras set up to catch you. Welcome to North Somerset. Roads deteriorating, road signs, footpaths, pavements and vital rural lanes overgrown. That's not green or rewilding, it is just dangerous. In 2018, a government report stated that North Somerset roads were among the best in the UK. Not anymore. Drains broken or blocked, causing flooding to roads, public open spaces and private property. The fire brigade called because the council teams couldn't cope with demand. These are all our responsibility. They will have to be done, and it's not going to get cheaper. Instead, we get the fiasco of Clevedon Seafront. New build. We were told recently that the exec are not willing to reduce the number in the local plan as new legislation had not yet gone through Parliament. In a letter from the Minister last week, she stated, "I would like to first clarify that the standard method for assessing housing need does not set a target. It is used by councils to inform the preparation of their local plans. Councils decide their own housing requirement once they have considered their ability to meet their own needs in their area. We do not need thousands of homes on the Bristol border. We need them for our own residents here in Weston and our other towns. Why? Because developers will always choose the easy new sites and then claim that to put in the required facilities, they will have to reduce the numbers of realistically affordable homes, or the council will have to pay towards the infrastructure. I haven't seen any budget for that. I have some sympathy for the difficult situation. You've had it. We had cuts imposed for 10 years following the financial crash. But I do not see how this budget is sustainable, and I don't mean from the point of view of the 151 officer. I mean if there are any changes to demand-led vital services or in government funding, whoever that is, given the financial national debt, there are £10 million worth of untested savings you've just alluded to included in the budget, including I think 4 million cut in adult services. So I don't see that there is any room to manoeuvre, given you have already used reserves to get this far. I really hope you've got Plan B. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ashton. I believe there are several other members who want to speak. I believe Councillor Harley was next.
Thank you, Chairman. Actually, you'll probably be pleased to say here that I'm not going to say very much because Councillor Ashton has almost said it all, and I can't possibly not disagree with him. It does concern me, and I certainly will not be voting for it. I am actually very green orientated, but I do feel that we are going down the wrong route and spending money where it could be used for so many other things. And I think certainly, having experienced it, is in adult social care. I think there is, which I think any of you who've been involved will find it very, very difficult to accept, that most of the people who do the caring in the community are probably on minimum wage. And quite frankly, are looked down by the rest of the National Health Service. I find it impossible to believe, sitting through a children and young people's scrutiny panel presentation, to see that we had a comment about 6 to 8 year olds having mental health problems. Well, quite frankly, 6 to 8 year olds shouldn't even know what mental health is about. I think that and if they do, then we should be asking ourselves what we are doing about it. And what we're doing about it is actually, in my book, putting the money where it should not be going. It's going to take us time, a lot of time to go down that green road, and we have to be careful and sensible. And I'd like to know, Councillor Cartman, you mentioned about £10 million. So could you give me a breakdown of where that £10 million has come, instead of saying thank you very much, aren't we wonderful? Has it come from government resources? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harley. I believe Councillor James wanted to speak next.
Thank you, Chair. What have you done in the last 4 years? That's the question I found myself hearing on the bus going to Weston, my friend from school, a few weeks ago. What have you done in the last 4 years? Are you the worst council North Somerset's ever had? The bus goes past Keys Avenue. We did that, I said. We got Portishead back on track. The first new train line being reopened by local authority since the beaching cuts. Finally been approved. Great news. Spades in the ground soon to come imminently. We did that in the last 4 years. We drive a bit further. We go down Marina Gardens. I point to that. The single biggest investment in affordable housing Portishead's seen in generations. 110 homes. That's one thing we've done in the last 4 years. Something that will benefit people from disadvantaged communities across North Somerset. The bus reaches the cab stand. I say, we did that. No, a bit further there. We did that. Vaguely across towards the lake grounds. The Great Lakes strategy, continued on in this budget, has put some much-needed public realm improvements to Portishead's jewel in the crown. I point a bit further. We helped that too. We helped that. We co-funded an unlocked landlord's permission for the Portishead skate park, something that a generation has been waiting for. I point a bit further, and I say that we provided the public right-of-way for the old golf course. We protected it from speculative development as a village green space, and we continue to invest in green spaces through our budget. We did that. I looked down the road to the care home along the High Street, and as Councillor Harley says, social care salary levels haven't been acceptable. We haven't done that. We haven't increased salaries to a decent living wage. We haven't prioritised sometimes where we could have. Unfortunately, the bus we sit on hasn't quite benefited from the bus service improvement plan yet, but it soon will, because we had one of the strongest bids, and that's because the strength of the officer team and the policy team here in North Somerset. When I go out and speak to businesses in the region, they tell me to look up the successes of Food Works as an excellent example of identifying a cluster and nurturing it. No one else quite does it well as the economic development team in North Somerset, they say. They tell me they're amazed despite the fact that we have no overall control here in this council. We have a collective culture. We work as a team here in North Somerset, and that's worth its weight in the gold reserves that we woefully lack. In the last 4 years, we've protected our frontline services, successfully bid on pretty much every government grant going. We've had the best staff satisfaction rates that we've had in generations. This is a budget of a local authority that has shown the collective leadership which our residents have needed over the pandemic. Whilst a Conservative government has been directionless, focusing on infighting, feuding, demonising vulnerable people, what we've done in here in the last 4 years hasn't always been enough, ruthlessly prioritising. And I'm not here to tell Councillor Ashton to think on his sins. I'm highlighting that this council has stood fast for a more open, fair and green council. So I commend this budget. I thank colleagues. I thank staff members. The past 4 years have been a surprise, an honour and something that we've been waiting for a generation.
Thank you, Councillor James, for your passionate speech. It's a hard act to follow. Who would like to follow? I believe Councillor Solomon is next.
Well, I'm not going to follow that with an impassioned speech. Well done, Hugh. Well said. I just wanted to say, as a new councillor, I've been sitting in these chambers for the past 4 years, and tonight is the most I've ever heard Councillor Ashton say. It makes me wonder if there's an election coming up. I don't know, but the other thing is I've noticed also he's got his overcoat on, ready to make a quick escape. Thank you, Councillor Ashton.
Councillor Petty is next.
I thought I'd just say a few things. I'm quite comfortable that I disagree with the group leader, the group Conservative leader, Nigel Ashton, in the comments he's made, because I don't stand with his party. I don't stand very close to his party. I have a very different perspective. When I stood to be elected, the Conservatives had been running North Somerset, and it was a sad, sad story and a sad, sad place to feel that we were part of. So I stood, and I expected really to be in opposition. And what I thought opposition was coming and challenging and presenting alternative budgets. What I've heard from Greens across the country when other parties are leading is that they present alternative budgets. So when you don't like something, come with a proposal. I'm asking, it's the 4th year running, where is the alternative budget that the Conservatives are proposing? Because actually what they did was they moaned and they kind of pointed and called some names a bit, but really, and also the other fundamental I think we disagree on is that he made a point that he believed that central government would never provide community and public services and should never pay for those things. And fundamentally, I happily disagree. Well, there was a comment about the central government would never adequately fund local government. And I really disagree, and that is not a world that I'm pushing for a different perspective, and that's what the Green Party is doing. What I am proud of is the work that we have done collectively. I'm proud of the comments from other people who have spoken so far, Hugh James there, Mike Solomon, and how Ashley Cartman presented the budget here. This is a challenging time. I wish that budgets and councils were funded adequately, and until we change central government and get rid of the Conservative central government, we won't see any kind of change. So I am here to support this budget. However, I do wish that our council services were funded appropriately, and that's why Green councillors wrote a letter to Michael Gove pre-Christmas pointing out that it's really not good enough the way that councils are being put under pressure. Local services are being put under pressure, and then we are being forced to put that pressure onto local residents who are facing a cost of living crisis. So I do support this budget, but it is not from a position of being supportive of what is happening around us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Petty. Councillor Gibbons, please.
Thank you. Obviously, I also support this budget because, as colleagues have said, we've worked closely together. We've fought our corners for our different portfolio areas as best we can. And funnily enough, I'd like to thank Councillor Ashton, really, for everything he said, because he's articulated very well all the failings of central government in the areas that we don't get funding. He has outlined them very, very clearly. I think we all know in this chamber that local government's funding has declined since 2010 by the most moderate estimate at 20%, but in real terms by 40%. So until that's addressed, I don't think that, as Councillor Petty said, we can expect a great deal of hope. And I would say that it's a fantastic accolade to our officers that we managed to get this inward investment, because what this government has been doing in terms of funding local government is to create a sort of Hunger Games for councils, where they identify people who are in need and they say, here's a pot of money and you've got to compete for it. So we've competed for money. That means that we've won it, which is great for our residents, but there are other equally needy areas of the country that didn't get it. And it's just an unsustainable way of supporting our communities, in my opinion. So I think that if we don't make a change to our central government to avoid this competitive way of pitting communities against each other for scraps of money from the government's table, we are not going to be doing the best for our residents. So therefore, I do support this government, not government, this council's budget. I do not support this government. Slip of the tongue there, Councillor Ashton. And I just hope that in a couple of years' time, we'll have the sort of change we need in the country so that we can look forward to a greener, fairer future for the entire country. And we've done our best to offer that for North Somerset. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibbons. Councillor Charles.
Thank you. I'd just like to ask what we're doing here, really, and this is talking about a budget, and I'd like to commend the councillors that I've worked with over 4 years for the budgets that they have done. I know they are people that work hard and really care about the communities they serve, and I thank them for what they have done. Even though the reason that I sit here is not because I do not support this administration. I do not believe this administration is radical enough, and that is why I sit here. And particularly why I stood for office all those years ago was because I believe that we should, as it says in the corporate plan, be open and listen to people. And I also stood because I believe politics is far too important to just be left to politicians. Politics should be something that should be open to all, accessible to all, and that's why on page 45 of the budget document, under consultation and engagement, I am so incredibly sad and disappointed. It mentions such great initiatives as the Citizens Panel, which were consulted on this budget, which comprises of 550 individuals, which in my very inaccurate maths accounts for 0.27% of the population of North Somerset. They talk of survey work and focus group work, and a survey which received about 40% response, which accounts for 0.67% of the population of this North Somerset. The Citizens Panel, which I played a part of putting into place, is a great initiative, but it shouldn't be the only arsenal in the toolbox. We needed wider consultation on this budget, and we need, going forward, wider education on the prospects of why cuts and revisions of services are made. We need an open and transparent dialogue about what local government is facing and what local government means. We have fallen short of many other councils in how we engage. We are making inroads, I agree, but not nearly as fast enough. I've been told there's no money. I've been told by some councillors that it's just going to be a talking shop for would-be councillors to come along. I've been talked about how the public aren't really interested. They are. I've had open conversations, and I believe in wider public engagement, not 0.16 people influencing the budget in this way. Please, I urge you all, whether you're standing or not, and you are here in the years to come, consider that we are administering a failing democracy at a local and national level, that the public are becoming increasingly disinterested in and increasingly hostile against. Politics is far too important to be left to politicians. Let's be radical. Let's deliver a politics that people deserve, open and transparent. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you very much, Councillor Charles. Councillor Bell, I believe, was next to speak.
Thank you, and it feels a bit strange to be down the Cassandra, what feels like the Cassandra end of the chamber this evening, because I wanted to be positive and look forward, because I hope that what unites all of us is what we came into this, or I hope we did, in the first place, and that was to try and represent the views of our fellow residents. We don't all stop becoming people, by the way, Caritas, when we become councillors. We're still people, aren't we? I like to think we don't. You don't change, you put your politician mask on, and if you do, you're wearing one as well, I'm afraid. But we come into it to try and make a difference and to get things done. And what I am most proud of, both in this budget and over the last 4 years, is that we have tried to do that. I believe that we have genuinely tried to set aside party differences and geographic and parochial differences and try to come up with the best solutions and make things happen. And with all due respect to Councillor Ashton and his many years of experience and service to North Somerset, I don't think that was always the case under the previous administration. I do think that genuinely previous Conservative administrations were not interested in listening to alternative views. There was your way and it was the only way, and I don't think that has been true in this administration. We have tried to reach out to people, we have tried to work together, and we have tried to get things done. And critically, we haven't gone round saying, no, you can't do that, no, you can't have that, no, officers can't come up with ideas. We want to be a council that is imaginative, that is forward-looking, that is ambitious, within all of those constraints that you talked about. Because you're absolutely right. The local government landscape and the financial challenges that we face are not new. We've had the global financial crisis, we've had the COVID pandemic, we've got the Ukraine war. There will be more crises coming down the line that will impact on our national and global economy, and local government is not somehow magically immune to that. We face the consequences of all of that. So none of that's going to disappear. All we can try to do is make things happen and head in the right direction. And I believe that under this administration over the last 4 years, we have absolutely tried to do that. Critical to a successful council, though, is for everybody to play their part. And I'm afraid that the Conservative group has not played its part in these last 4 years, because colleagues are quite right to say you haven't put forward proposals for amendments, and you haven't done it tonight. You've given us a list of things that you don't like, but not one single constructive suggestion about what we could do differently. And hilariously, frankly, it's like you think people are stupid. On the one hand, you criticise the budget and say the government will never give you enough, and then on the other, you want to support and defend the record of your Conservative government when they are the ones that are tying our hands behind our back and failing to give us the powers and the freedoms that we need. And a good example of that is social care. Because you and I see eye to eye on the challenges facing social care and the critical need to invest in social care, to give it parity with healthcare services, to value care workers, whether they are voluntary or paid, equally. But your government has failed to take action to deliver a fairer social care funding settlement. And in fact, it's the first thing that goes out the window when things go wrong. So as soon as we got a financial pressure, as soon as the economy was trashed, it has to be said by your government and Liz Truss in particular, the first thing that goes out of the window is a fair and sustainable funding model for social care. So we can't deliver the interventions that you quite rightly talk about in terms of giving fairness and sustainability to the social care sector. And all we can do is try and roll up our sleeves and keep working to make things better and to make the case. And I think a really good start for that would be to get rid of this government who have failed to deliver and have been in office too long, stop listening, stop caring, and are simply not delivering what people want. So I absolutely will support this budget. I look forward to the election where we will be able to take our case to people, and I hope that they will reward the progress and the getting things done attitude that we have had in North Somerset over the last 4 years. And the sooner that we can get rid of your government, I'm sorry, Councillor Ashton, the better.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Would you like to follow that, Councillor Westwood?
Oh, thanks very much, Chairman. Chairwoman. Broadly, I would support this budget. I think it's a good budget. I think we've done the best that we can in the circumstances as a council. On a narrow point, and I didn't really quite believe my ears when Councillor Ashton said there was insufficient money in the children and young persons budget. This, as I understand it from the party who cut children's services in favour of providing uncharged garden waste bins. Also, I have to say it, as a former teacher with more years of experience in schools at the sharp end than I care to admit, coming in with some knowledge of education, the Children and Young Persons Department has been painstakingly put back together from the atomised, sorry state in which the previous administration had left it. Yes. There you go.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Westwood. Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, I suppose we can expect no more as we're getting near an election, but we've heard some tosh talk there. Just to remind things, it's all very well to get all excited about what we're going to do. Oh, we've done all this over the last 4 years. Let's bear in mind that much of what's been achieved actually is from a track record which has been running for years, and many of these things, like Port Said Railing, started some years ago. The fact it's arrived in the last 4 years isn't down to the current administration. I don't have a problem with the overall budget because it makes sense we have to do this. Things in it I don't like. But what annoys me is where members will come in this chamber tonight and go on about it and don't attend the sessions that we've had. There's been 3 sessions on the budget. I've come forward with some thoughts of what should be done, and they were taken on board. So don't ever say Conservatives haven't been involved. Where the work is done isn't in this chamber. This chamber is rubber stamping what we do. What we do is in the committees and in the working groups. And as many members in this chamber will know, I've been involved in most of them, and been involved in very much. And let's not also forget that the first government that attacked local government started cutting was the Blair government, followed by the coalition, followed by us. I'm not about to defend what the government is doing at the moment, but you do need to recognise that all 3 main parties, the cutback with local government started at the end of the 90s. So let's forget that.
Thank you, Councillor Crew. Now, try and not stray too far into central government's politics. Let's keep this local and to North Somerset, please. Councillor Bridger, I believe, is next.
Thank you, Chairperson. Can I take us back and first of all say thank you to Ash. Thanks, Ash, and my executive colleagues and all those who've challenged us, particularly through scrutiny, and I include 2 or 3 members of the opposition in that, including most especially Councillor Crew. It obviously passed, as he said, Councillor Ashton by, but as others have said, he either liked what we'd done or forgot that oppositions can present an alternative budget. So if I'm feeling generous, I'd say his comments were extremely disappointing, but I'm not feeling generous. I think they were pathetic. Absolutely pathetic, actually. I think North Somerset has hugely benefited from our multi-party Rainbow Coalition. In very challenging times, I think we shouldn't forget that. Very challenging times. I think we've convened and we've consulted. Yes, we have consulted. We've shown ourselves to be a caring council, but also a can-do council, rather than a council that just says no. We've protected frontline services by pet ideological projects. I assume that Councillor Ashton is referring to things like active travel, which I think is, last time I looked, was government policy. We've shown leadership. We've shown leadership as an administration. When presented with choices, his Conservative administration decimated our youth services. Many people have not forgotten that. It's our job, Councillor Charles, I think, to engage with our constituents over the budget. That's part of our job. We cannot be totally open in a budget setting process, because we're not just talking about council services, we're also talking about people's jobs. So there's some sensitivities. Yes, we can always have more consultation, but it's our job as ward councillors to lead that and show leadership. I could go on. I just want to sort of finish by saying, thank you very much to all our officers for helping us bring forward this budget. I'm very happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bridger. Councillor Cunniford.
Thank you, Chairperson. I wasn't going to really make a great deal of comment tonight because I know how these debates, having to be in them for many years, can go on. But I do think there was a couple of comments made that need to be corrected. So this council over the last 3 years has put up council tax by 8.97% or 11.96% if you take this year into account if it's voted on. The additional was due to the rudderless policies of the government around adult social care. And that is the fact. So I would suggest that Councillor Ashton is responsible for that because he should get his government under control, because they're certainly not my government. This council was left, without doubt, with a lot of things to fix when it came in 2019. Additionally, we had to fix the waste contracts. We had to fix the lakes. We had to fix Burnbeck. We've had to fix so many of our assets. And that's positive news, not negative news. Those are the things that we were left to do. And I doubt they would have been done if it wasn't for us. We talk about chaos. I think the Conservatives print it in their leaflet. They've got chaos down there. One says we shouldn't be adding additional money for adult social care. The others say we should be adding more money for adult social care. They are absolutely in chaos in government. They're in chaos here in North Somerset. The fact is they have not been opposition. Fact is they've sat there taking their allowances, doing absolutely nothing. And I find that frustrating. Now, there is an exception to that, and I have to agree with Councillor Bridger, is Peter Crewe has been involved in a great deal. But with regards to the others, Terry Porter's been there a few times, but the rest I have not seen. And I really do object to their saying that we have been doing nothing, because we've been doing a lot and they haven't been there to see it. That's the reason.
Thank you, Councillor Cunniford. And I think we come to our last speaker, which is Councillor Hogg.
Blimey, I didn't realise it was going to be this much fun. I had to wait 4 years for this. I mean, everybody's said everything that needs to be said, but I just wanted to bring it back, rather conservatively with a small c, back to sort of facts and reality. Councillor Ashton made a few remarks kind of characterising BSIP like some maligned vanity project. He talked about driver shortages, and yes, he's quite right to point that out. That has been a significant issue nationally. Regionally, I think First Bus were about 300 drivers short. But we only really need to look as far as Brexit and the cost of living crisis to see two of the really significant drivers for that shortage. As HGV drivers left their jobs and went back to Europe, lots of bus drivers in the middle of a cost of living crisis saw that there were better terms and conditions to be had driving HGV, and they switched. In terms of the bus prioritisation stuff, Councillor Ashton talks about it being gridlock across North Somerset if we put bus lanes and cameras in. Well, the first thing to say, of course, it's a condition of the funding that we've received from BSIP that we provide the prioritisation and also the cameras to enforce it. So that is a condition of the DFT. So it's them that he has a problem with. But actually, I think it's a sensible thing to do, because essentially what we are doing in exchange for investing in bus prioritisation and in the cameras, what we will have are more frequent buses, more buses, greater capacity on the commercial routes, and then of course we've got DRT, which will be filling in a lot of the blanks. But I just wanted to pick up on those two specific points. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hogg. I think we've come to Councillor Cartman to sum up, but first of all, I actually forgot to ask for a seconder to your initial proposal. Can I have a seconder? Councillor, thank you. Councillor Cartman.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to answer everyone, but I'm going to make a few comments, really. So thank you, Councillor Ashton. Wow. It's nice to hear a really good articulation of what you believe and what you want to stand up for, because, I got your leaflet and I read it, which is unusual because I don't normally read fiction. And it says in there that you've been standing up to us for 4 years, and I was a bit worried I'd been to the wrong meetings. But so lovely, and I think it's good. That's what you stand for, and that's your beliefs. But to call our beliefs ideological kind of misses the point, because we would say your beliefs are ideological. We stand up for a set of values like you do, and I think in the 4 years that you ran the council, you ran it in accordance with your beliefs. You point out that we put up by council tax by 18%. We have. You put it up by 18.5%. You point out that, you know, we're trying to protect services we did, but I think you cut more. So we've put up council tax less than inflation, less than earnings growth, unlike you, and protected more services. To me, that sounds like we've just done a better job, really. And I think the slogan for the election is quite clear. It's kind of vote Conservative, pay more, get less. I mean, that's the way I see it. So I think, you know, it is ideological and people need to think about what they want. I agree with other comments people have made. I think, you know, it feels a bit, shall I say, brutal tonight, but I don't think that should be directed at all councillors. I think there are many councillors in the Conservative group that do a really good job, and that shouldn't be overlooked, because a lot of the good work, as Councillor Crew says, does go on behind the scenes. But actually, you know, speaking as a new councillor, I would have liked more Conservative voices in those groups, because I do passionately believe that cross-party working leads to better decisions. Otherwise, you just sit in your own echo chamber, and that's not good for anyone. So I am really pleased with this budget. I think we've got a lot more to do. I think we sit in a really difficult framework from national government. And it's not just me as a Lib Dem saying that, or Green, or Labour. You know, you've got the leaders of Wiltshire Council saying it. I'm sure Thurrock Council have, you know, they'll be saying the same in their financial difficulties. We want more power at local level, whether we're Conservative, Lib Dem, Labour, so that we can reflect the choices and the decisions and act out the values of what our residents have. You know, that comes to, you know, Councillor Charles's comment here. We do want to reflect properly the value of our residents. I do disagree with him in terms of the way he perhaps approaches that. I'm a believer in a representative democracy. I do believe some people are literally too busy and not interested, and they want to vote for someone once every 4 years, so they don't have to engage with the budget every year at council. You know, they're too busy. And I've been in that place in my life before where I didn't want to have to think about it. And that's what I elect people to do. That doesn't mean we shouldn't open up and give them the chance to get involved. And I think, just to acknowledge Councillor Charles, we've got some way to go, but I hope he would acknowledge we have come some way already. So I think more engagement and more involvement. Again, talking about being cross-party, I understand Councillor Charles is standing again, and welcome any further involvement if he is re-elected to help us shape that going forward. I think just a couple other things. I think the final thing, I know Councillor Harley raised about the £10 million. I think you'll find that in Appendix 2 of Councillor Harley, I think, but I'm happy to liaise with you separately on that. I'm not going to go on much more. I'm happy to put this forward as a proposal for people to vote on. I believe it's a named vote. Is that right? And I have a secondary in Councillor Bridger. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cartman. So let's proceed to the vote, please.
Thank you, Chairperson. Councillors, you'll be aware of the process. I will call each councillor in alphabetical order. If you could respond for the motion, which is to adopt the budget and the council tax, against the motion, or abstain, please. Councillor Applin, I believe, is absent. Councillor Ashton. Councillor Bell.
For.
Councillor Bird has given apologies. Councillor Bridger.
For.
Councillor Bryant. Councillor Butte. Councillor Caniford. Councillor Cartman.
For.
Councillor Cato.
For.
Councillor Charles.
Abstain.
Councillor Cherry.
For.
Councillor Clayton. Councillor Codling has given apologies. Councillor Cole.
Abstain.
Councillor Crew. Councillor Crockford-Hawley is with us, but on Teams, so he doesn't get a vote. Councillor Cronley.
For.
Councillor Crosby is absent. Councillor Davies. Councillor Gibbons.
For.
Councillor Goddard has given apologies. Councillor Gregor. Councillor Griggs.
For.
Councillor Harley. Councillor Haverson.
For.
Councillor Hearn. Councillor Hitchins is absent tonight. Councillor Hogg.
For.
Councillor Holland has given apologies. Councillor Jacobs is absent. Councillor Councillor James.
For.
Councillor Keating is absent. Councillor Leigh Morgan.
For.
Councillor McQuillan.
For.
Councillor Neve. Councillor Parker is absent tonight. Councillor Payne.
For.
Councillor Pepperell is absent, I believe, yes. Councillor Petty.
For.
Councillor Pilgrim.
Against.
Councillor Porter.
Abstain.
Councillor Richardson.
For.
Councillor Shopland has given apologies. Councillor Sneeden.
For.
Councillor Solomon.
For.
Councillor Tonkin. Councillor Tucker. Councillor Westwood.
For.
And Councillor Willis has given apologies. That is clearly carried, Chairperson, but I will give you the figures if you'll give me just a second.
Thank you.
Chairperson, I believe it's 27-4-5, with 27-4, 4 against and 5 abstentions. I will check those figures, but it's clearly carried.
Thank you very much. I believe Councillor Cartman is to move the next item, 5.2, which is the Treasury Management Strategy for 2023 and 22-24. Oh, that was, yeah.
Chairman, that was the
Yeah.
budget item 5.1 and item 6. You do still have the Treasury Management, which is item 5.2, and the Capital Strategy is 5.3 to deal with.
Yeah.
Do we do them separately or together, 5.2 and 5.3?
They're just recommendations in both cases to adopt the strategies that have come forward from executive. So if members are happy, I think you can take them together.
Yeah, I propose, if anyone objects, we take them together for recommendation and noting. Thank you.
Can I have a seconder?
Councillor Bridger has seconded. Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions?
Thank you, Chairperson. That's carried.
Thank you. Right, so we come to item 7, and that is approval of, so we're changing tack now, approval of the making of a supplementary compulsory purchase order for the Wanwell Bypass and Highways Improvement Scheme. And that there is a part which is exempt, but I believe that is just a little data set, but it's obviously commercially sensitive, so I presume unless somebody wants to discuss the exempt item, then we have to defer it until the end of the meeting, but I can't see any reason for it. Any issues with that? Okay. So if we go to Councillor Bridger.
Thank you, Chairperson. Something else we're delivering. Members will recall that last July, Council approved the making of a compulsory purchase order to secure the land needed for the construction of the Banwell Bypass. So why are we bringing another CPO paper to Council? Well, as ward members will know, and those who have been involved in the scrutiny process, we've been running the CPO process pretty much in parallel with the planning application process, and there was always a risk, I guess, that not all the land that we need would be identified and included at the time we served the original CPO last summer. So this is a supplemental CPO, mainly as a result of some comments we've received from Natural England, who requested some additional agricultural land for bat mitigation, and the relevant correspondence is included in the appendices to the report. It's quite it's a long report, 25 pages. It's quite legalistic. Effectively, it identifies 7.7 hectares of land that's required for that bat mitigation. So that's more trees, more woodland, some foraging areas for bats, as well as some bat hopovers, which I think are basically some leafy canopy that reaches across the road for bats to cross more easily. So there are some specific parcels of land. They're identified in the report. I won't go through them, but they include the retention of the traditional orchard on Riverside, which I think from memory, the first iteration of the bypass design actually had sort of traversing that orchard. So it's good we've been able to not only protect it, but we'll be enhancing it. I know that Natural England have informed us that they welcome these additional parcels of land that make up this supplemental CPO. Of course, negotiation and agreement with the landowners remains the preferred method to assemble the land we need to deliver the bypass, but the CPO process is needed in order to actually sort of draw down the stage 2 funding when we get to that point from Homes England. With reference to section 3.8 in the report, I should say that the planning application will not now be considered by the P&R committee tomorrow, but we are anticipating determination of whether or not to grant planning permission for the bypass at next month's meeting, which I think is the 15th of March. I wanted to make reference to the current funding position on the bypass project as a whole, albeit that we're taking a very specific decision this evening on supplemental CPO. I think as referenced in paragraph 5.4 of the report, the inflationary pressures and rising construction costs that are impacting all our capital projects actually, along with all infrastructure projects across the country, I'm sure, is a real issue. Homes England, as the funder, the core funder, are aware of the situation. We're working with them. They're working with us and with other local authorities, working through the detail to fully understand, I think, the emerging budgetary pressures. We're looking at options. We're exploring options to resolve those within the context of a really good relationship we have with Homes England, and I think ours is actually the most advanced HIF project in the country. I think it's worth stressing that the funding from Homes England is available obviously in stages, with the construction of the bypass contained in stage 2. There are no expected financial implications for the council while we remain in stage 1 of the project's delivery. All of our land assembly costs, and that includes any subsequent CPO public inquiry, if there is one, will all be dealt with under the current stage, the stage we're in, which is stage 1, and will be accommodated within the stage 1 budget. So it's all within the current funding envelope. So while our bypass team is working to rectify the funding situation, we shouldn't delay this decision to progress with the supplemental CPO, as we might need to use this mechanism, this tool, to acquire this additional land, and delaying that would only, I think, put further pressure on the program and project costs. Worth saying too, I think that a resolution on the stage 2 funding will come to the new council in the summer, most likely in the summer, before any stage 2 of the project's delivery can move forward. I think it could come to the executive, but obviously it's a big deal, this project, so it would be only right, I think, for that decision to come to the full council, given that it's a go no go decision, it's a gateway decision. So, Chairperson, as you yourself know, as a very interested party in this project, as I've always said, as the council has always said, the bypass is not just a new road. We want it to be an exemplar project for such schemes, going above and beyond. I believe we're going above and beyond with this project, and I move the recommendations in the report and look for a seconder.
Councillor Crew, did you want to table an amendment?
No, Madam Chairman, I was just happy to second and just say that we look at this through the place panel at the HIF meeting regularly, and is very well supported. Just on behalf of the chairman of Place, who I know he's online, but he may be a bit hoarse, that can't say much at the moment. But when we go through this with HIF, both with the Winstoke Hundreds and the bypass, it's very detailed. Our officers have been excellent on it in the information they give. But I would urge, if any members are interested, please turn up. John has always had an open invitation to anyone that wants to attend the HIF meeting when we have it to turn up, because it is very detailed. It gives you a lot more information that we can go through here, and some of that information is obviously sensitive. And all I would ask is just one question, and I'm not going to identify who, because that again is sensitive, but under the CPO that we get to, is it reasonable to think that some businesses can carry on for this year?
Thank you, Councillor Crew. So we have a seconder. So we can proceed to the vote. Can we? Oh, sorry, Councillor Harley.
Yes, sorry, Madam Chairman. I just wanted some clarification from Councillor Bridger, if I may. When he was speaking about stage 2, is that the next stage where it joins up with the A38, or is it? Or are you talking about, you know, part of this stage 1?
Stage 2 is effectively the construction, the contract to build the actual bypass, and that's what will come to council.
Just on the first stage, in other words, I call it the loop actually.
We're in stage.
That is the one you're talking about, but it's not the next stage down.
It's not the A38 major road project.
That is so I can have the clarification, because I'm sure you're well aware, and I know the chairman, when the chairwoman is, that there is a lot of controversy within Winscombe and Sanford and Churchill and everywhere else, and you know, it's difficult for us to deal with, but I think we've got to be very proactive, you know, I just wanted that clarification.
Thank you, Councillor Harley. Yes, if I may just add, I believe there is stage 2 is completely restricted to this current project. The A38 project is a pie in the sky as far as I can see. Councillor Bridger.
Yeah, I just wanted to, obviously, where we shouldn't really stray into, I hear what Councillor Harley says, we shouldn't really stray into the sort of the planning aspects of this, because obviously that's still to be determined. It needs to come to P&R committee, as I say, most likely next month, where obviously there's been a lot of debate and discussion, and you know, it's not without controversy, obviously, a project of this nature, but obviously that will come to P&R next month.
Thank you. Councillor Gregor.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm pleased to see such progress on stage 1 of that bypass. I've risked my life going through Banwell for the last 40 years. And I would say, Madam Chair, that the Wintford village where I come from, we have to accommodate all the traffic to and from Bristol Airport. We're one of the main routes to it. So I'm really looking forward to the Wintford bypass being announced as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Gregor. Anybody else who would like to? No, I believe that is it. So can we go to the vote? All those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Wow. Wow. Unanimous. Item 8 is the adoption of the revised travel plans SPD following public consultation, which I believe Councillor Hogg is presenting.
Yep, thank you, Chair. Just like to thank officers for the work they've done on this, particularly Emily MacDonald and the transport team. So this evening I'm looking for Council to approve and adopt the revised travel plans SPD following consultation. Just a quick sort of revision for those who perhaps don't know what a travel plan SPD is. So travel plans are submitted by developers typically at the application stage, basically set out what will be done to mitigate the transport impacts and facilitate travel by means other than by car. National planning policy requires that all developments which generate significant amounts of movement or where location is traffic sensitive need a travel plan of some sort. And the travel plan is usually secured either by Section 106 agreements or by planning conditions. So our current travel plan as it stands is 13 years old, so it was well and truly due for a review. Belongs to a different era, really. Pre-housing targets, perhaps, pre-local plan, pre-climate emergency. And so it was due a complete review. Somebody just collapsed over there, with the excitement of it all. The proposed travel plan SPD will also bring us into line with our regional neighbours in WECA and other local authorities, and ensure consistency with our active travel strategy and climate emergency action plan. I'm sure most of you have read the report in full, so I won't sort of read the whole thing out, but just want to call out the key changes to the SPD, the new one, the proposed one, versus the other one. So firstly, on the travel plan threshold, so that's the number of proposed dwellings that would trigger the requirement for an SPD. That's changed, and that's been brought down from 80 dwellings to 60 dwellings. Officers conducted some analysis, and we have about 15 to 20 developments, given the sort of the kind of topography we have in North Somerset. We do have quite a few of these kind of medium, large-scale developments around the kind of 60 to 70 dwellings. There's a few around Yatton. There's some also located in Weston-super-Mare. I think there are about 15 or 20 currently. And so it's important that we capture the impact of those and make sure that we're making provision for sustainable travel options. In terms of delivery options, there's a proposed council-led travel plan. So with this, we would manage and implement the measures in exchange for a Section 106 contribution per dwelling, as well as obviously the developer-led, where the developer retains responsibility and pays a monitoring fee and a bond for remedial work needed at the end of the 5-year life cycle of the travel plan, which is obviously existing as part of the existing travel plan. Also, in addition, a slight change in the way that it's delivered. So currently, I think the developer provides a PDF, essentially, of what the travel plan is. The proposal is to move to a centre of excellence called Mode Shift Stars. It's a website that you can have a look at, who effectively deliver effective travel plans through their online travel plan toolkits, rather than just a kind of one-way PDF. So that's also part of the proposed the proposals and the recommendations. In terms of consultation, it's had internal officer consultation in February 2020. It went to informal place panel in July 21. It gained exec approval for wider consultation in September 21, went out for public consultation during the summer of 22, and a written update was provided to the place panel earlier this year, I think, or perhaps late last year. The details of the outcomes of the consultation is detailed in section 4 on the attached report. So all that's left really is for me to move the recommendation in the report and look for a seconder.
I believe we have a seconder. Councillor McQuillan.
Chairperson, could I also ask a clarification question, please, for Councillor Hogg?
Okay.
Certainly. So first, through you. Sorry.
I believe Councillor Porter was first to raise his hand in that case.
I was just checking. Did the further consultation finish yesterday on this one?
Which further consultation is that?
Well, I thought the consultation just been done would finish yesterday, but that's not the same plan.
It's not the same.
This one was earlier.
No, it's not the same plan. I don't think.
That's why I was just checking. There was none of that.
This is a while ago. Yeah.
Sorry, who? Councillor McQuillan.
Thank you, Chairperson. I welcome this, and also I've had some engagement with the officers over this because we've had some issues with legacy travel plans for some long-standing schools in Long Ashton, as I believe you're aware of. What can we do you think, in parallel with this new SPD, to persuade those with existing, perhaps less 21st century travel plans, such as schools, to move over to Mode Shift Stars? I know we can't compel them to do so, but what can we do to encourage them? Because I think there's some key travel plans in key areas that could do with modernising. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gibbons?
I was only offering to second.
Sorry. In that case, Councillor Charles.
Could I ask Steve whether under sections of monitoring and review, which is page 30 and 31, the monitoring programme says under point 5, resident employee surveys and survey return date. Is there any scope, or would you encourage a wider use of local residents in monitoring and reviewing other than survey work? And also, would that be something you'd consider, approve?
Answer that? Well, of course, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you know, we can discuss that offline. I'm happy to consider it. Just going back also on Councillor McQuillan's point, it's an excellent point actually, in terms of, you know, I talked about the analysis work that officers have done, and we've identified 15 to 20 developments that are kind of below 80 dwellings and above 60 dwellings that we could have captured as part of this. You know, I also think there's, you know, potential to look at some of those, but I think it's an excellent point and something I'm happy to pick up with officers as well. So I'll pick up on both points. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Councillor Davies was next.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Hogg, and thank you for the officer team that have put this together. I think it's very helpful. I'm going to say it's going to help us start, and I'm going to support Councillor Charles in his comments around engagement, because I do think with this, and I appreciate it's a wider ranging document, but let's look at travel plans to supermarkets. If you don't happen to be in a car, which because they much prefer to be buying your shop in a car, because you can get much more if you've got a car, haven't you? If you want to go by bicycle or walk, then you have to run the gauntlet of the car user. You often find that where the cycle parking, and there's one in Portishead, which Councillor Charles made in his ward actually, near Lidl, where the pavement is actually at an angle. So when you've got to fix your bike to the stand, it's constantly rolling away as you try to lock it up. And then you have to go through the car parking spaces to get to the shop you want to go to. Now that's because the people that are judging this are in cars. And actually the subspecies of walkers and cyclists have to very much be very happy they've even been thought about. So I think if these SPDs are going to work and to have the goals we want, then we almost need to start from the position of saying the cyclist comes after the pedestrian, and the pedestrian perhaps with a caring responsibility is at the top of the priorities, and the car is very much at the bottom of the priorities. I see the document here, but I don't think in terms of the essence of it that it captures that. And when we certainly do the reviews of it, will it be, the cars are okay, yes, there is a cycle park, yes, you can get around them with a pushchair if you're prepared to go all the way around the outside of the site, as opposed to saying the pushchair user should be able to go straight to the front door and not have to dodge the cars. I don't pick up that hierarchy in this document, and I think if we are going to be serious about imposing this, then we need to make sure that a philosophical point of view, that's the way we do it, that way round.
Thank you very much.
Can I just come back on, Chair, sorry, just come back on one thing that you've just said there, Councillor Davis. I think one of the benefits of this new the recommendations here is the use of mode shift stars. So one of the key bits of the text in here is about not just storing the travel plan or writing it, you know, as we've currently got, but also developing it and managing it over a period of time. So I think there should be sufficient provision within that to develop, you know, along the themes that you're suggesting. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Cunniford.
Yeah, just very briefly, Chairperson, I welcome this. I welcome this because it seems to be putting policy, joining it together. The fact is we don't just rely on the developer to come up with a plan. Some developers don't want to do that, and this piece of work that you've done with officers now allows those developers to ask the council to develop a plan, and by doing so, we can then encourage the right forms of transport and right forms of development that we want. So I do welcome this, and I also welcome the fact that we can now monitor, and that's what's important, because up to this point, like you say, it's written, shoved in a file and stuck on the shelf, and that hasn't worked, and it's proven not to work in the past.
Thank you very much, Councillor Caniff. Councillor Porter.
Yeah, sorry, just to come back in again. I couldn't attend the virtual meeting on the 15th of February, but in there was a report on there that further analysis would be performed on the active travel plans after the consultation closed yesterday. And it does say there the need to analyse the results fully. Does that not affect any way in what...
I don't think that's related to this, actually. I don't think... Well,
sure?
let's take it offline, but I'm pretty sure that's not related
okay,
to... Yeah, we're slightly at cross purposes here, I think. Yeah.
But there are some references to it in the plan you've got.
Okay, I believe you two are going to debate that offline. So I don't think we've got any more requests to speak, so can we vote? All those in favour? Oh, hang on, I think there was somebody. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. It's a very quick point because I too approve of this and the council-led travel plan. My only concern is how we're going to match the resource within the council to demand, which isn't going to be a constant.
Well, I think if it's a council-led plan, so obviously there's a couple of options there. Obviously, the funding, will be funded through the travel plan itself. I think through a payment, but I think that's essentially.
It will be funded, Steve, but it won't. You don't know when you need that resource, so I don't know how you can keep a steady resource.
Well, let's take that away, and yes, we'll have a look at it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All those in favour? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Carried. Okay. So we come to item number 9, which I believe is presented by Councillor Solomon, and it's the public space protection orders, just asking for delegated authority.
Yes, we're asking for delegated authority on this one to the executive responsible for PSPOs. This is so that they can be reacted on far more quickly if they're just single PSPOs. This really does apply to just the single PSPOs. For instance, as at the moment we're talking to Portishead about the marina and their issues there, and that may require a PSPO, and it means that can be done quickly, rather than the whole groups of PSPOs that would still come to executive. They will still be subject to consultation, of course, and the executive and other councillors would have their input.
Anybody seconding? Thank you. All those in favour?
That's clearly carried, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 10 is the petitions to be presented. I believe there were none. Item 11, normally we have motions. I believe there were none either. So we go to question time, item 12. Do we have any who wanted to ask a question? I believe Councillor Westwood.
Thank you, Chairwoman. This is a question for Councillor Bell. As ward councillors, we are getting increasing numbers of people coming to us with housing problems. Many of these residents have serious issues relating to poor maintenance, damp, drafty windows and mould, all of which have negative health implications, mostly in properties owned by private landlords. Residents frequently ask us when
North Somerset Council will be introducing some form of landlord licensing scheme, which would offer tenants better assurance / protection on standards. Can the executive member give an update on council plans to bring in such a scheme? Thank you.
Yes, very happy to comment on that, and thank you for the question. And you're right, the private sector housing market, and I feel this acutely because my ward has got approximately 50% private rented accommodation in it, so the highest proportion of private rented accommodation in the whole district in Western Central wards. So this is certainly an issue that I feel very strongly about. We've been doing a lot of work over the last 4 years to strengthen our engagement with the private rented sector, to put pressure on private landlords to improve, and have taken a lot of targeted interventions against particularly rogue landlords. And the first and most important thing that I would say to all colleagues is, if you do get reports from residents about problem landlords, please use the rogue landlords reporting service which is on the council website, and also let the private rented sector team know about that, because we can go out there, carry out inspections and take improvement and enforcement notices against landlords. And we have had some success over the last couple of years in issuing improvement notices to some particular poor performers. I think it's also worth reflecting on the fact that our current approach with a targeted licensing scheme, which we've got in place at the moment, has had some positive impacts. So, for example, we've just had back the stock conditioning survey that was done for us by the Building Research Establishment, and that's found that in Western Central there's been a 44% reduction in the number of properties in the worst condition, in Western Hillside a 29% reduction, and in Western Milton a 30% reduction. So there has been some progress in the last 4 years. However, as far as I'm concerned, one property in poor condition is one too many. So I have asked our private sector housing team to develop an action plan for further work that we can do to strengthen our engagement with the private rented sector and to move us towards a licensing scheme in due course, because I do think it is the most effective way of giving us the tools that we need to tackle road landlords.
Councillor Westwood, would you like to?
Yeah, just to say thank you to Councillor Bell for that answer. I was fascinated to learn of some of the tortuous financial arrangements that some landlords have in order to fund the numerous properties they own. Well, sort of own. You know, some of them are on 10-year fixed interest-only loans, for example, which can put their tenants, as has come to my notice recently, can put their tenants at a great disadvantage as to where they're going to live. But anyway, I'm glad to hear that there is some progress, Councillor Bell. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, is there, just to ask, is there any time scale as far as the progress that you've alluded to, Councillor Bell?
So we'll be looking to issue the action plan, and I should have said actually that the stock condition survey report will be going to the Adult Services and Housing Policy and Scrutiny panel later this week, so that will be an opportunity for officers to update the panel on the work that we're doing and the action plan that we're undertaking. It will probably take around 18 months to deliver a licensing scheme due to the legal process and consultation and evidence gathering that we have to go through, but in the meantime I have challenged officers to look at what more we can do to improve. I think it's also worth noting that the government has also done more in terms of introducing new rights for tenants and has also announced its intention to introduce a national register of landlords, which will also help tenants to hold landlords to account more effectively, and for us as local authority to take action against those that are failing. So I hope that we'll see further improvements quickly and also have that medium-term objective of introducing the licensing scheme.
Thanks very much.
Councillor Westwood, can I just ask you to provide, I believe you've already offered to hand in a note about this, and I'd just like to ask the other people who are preparing to ask a question, if you could let us have a note at the end for the minutes. It just makes it easier to write the minutes if we have a written version of your question. Councillor Charles, you're next.
Karen, I had two. Shall I ask one and put my hand down, or can I sneakily do two? Is that all right?
You can have one plus a supplemental.
Oh, thank you. But my first one was for Steve Hogg. I wanted to ask whether, with his BSIP plans, whether there are any engagement plans that include any co-creation and co-design when it comes to service provision, and whether, if not, he would consider that in the future, with co-design with residents as to services and provision. And my supplemental is for Councillor Cartman with regards to the forthcoming local elections and the organisation of that. Hopefully my council colleagues will join me in commending Mr. Brain and his team for the outstanding briefings they have given us with regards to how the procedures for the elections are taking place. What I would like to ask is if there will be any evaluation, firstly, of the problems faced or issues faced with the new changes to voting post-election, and also as well, does Councillor Cartman feel secure that there will not be issues, secure is not the right word, confident with regards to preparations, the issues that may occur with regards to the forthcoming elections? If that's clear. Sorry, Ash.
That was an interesting supplemental question. Councillor Hogg, would you like to answer the first one?
Sure. Just to address the question specifically is about co-creation and co-design. So we could just park the co-creation and co-design idea just for a second, just on engagement, because that's really at the heart of what of your question. And I've said it before, I'm absolutely committed to engage with local communities as we begin the deployment of BSIP across North Somerset. And that goes for all the communities within North Somerset. I think we've got a big job to do in terms of communicating how the service is going to work and what the service is going to look like, and make sure that people are comfortable using it. I think when it comes to co-creation and co-design, that's a really difficult thing to do for two reasons. One is we've got over 200,000 residents in North Somerset, and it's going to be very difficult to engage with all of those people on designing, what the brand looks like, what time the bus runs, and those sorts of things. I think certainly what I'm keen on doing is making sure that we are fully engaged with community leaders within the community, and I can think of several people in Portishead who would fit the bill here. I want to engage directly with them and make sure they are part of a feedback mechanism so that we are informing how the future service develops as a result of feedback of users using the service. The difficulty with BSIP is that, of course, essentially what you've got is a huge amount of money, but we are quite restricted in the way that we can run services by the DFT. At its heart, really, are a number of commercial services still run by First Bus. We have the enhanced partnership, which gives us a degree of more control over services than we had previously. But at its heart, it's still a commercially run operation. And then we have DRT, which is essentially a go anywhere at any time service. And so the idea is the bus comes to you. If you want to catch a bus from the stop outside my house to take you to somewhere else within the DRT zone within North Somerset, you just use the app or make a phone call and the bus is there. What I think the devil in the detail is going to be is just how well that lands, how quickly we're able to mobilise that service, given North Somerset geographically is a big area. We're only actually talking about 16 buses for DRT. What I want are people like Heather Toms and other fantastic people in Portishead to feed into that process and tell me how it's working, which bits of that new process are working well and which are working less well. The difficulty with DRT is it's not something that's being designed in the town hall here. It's a white labelled global business that runs a service. And whilst we are branding it as with a sort of a regional brand on it, essentially a lot of the way that the surface run is kind of built into the design already. So I think co-design, co-creation is difficult, engagement definitely, feedback definitely, helping us to shape the way it develops over the coming years definitely. Co-design, co-creation, let's talk about that separately. I know I'm with you and members of Portishead community next week on the 7th of March. I'm sure this theme will come up again. I'll have Carl with me as well, so we'll be able to go into a bit more detail on it, but not exactly the answer you wanted, but hopefully, most of the way there.
Thank you. Would you like to answer the supplementary question, Councillor Cartman?
Yeah, I will. I'm going to hand over to Nick shortly, but I've been very pleased so far with the work that's been undertaken. I just think before I hand to Nick in terms of the preparatory work and the risk reviews to look at that, I think it's all incumbent on us to try and get the message out there about voter ID. I know my fellow councillor, Stuart, if he's here, has put it on his leaflet, and I'm trying to do stuff as well to make sure that as fewer people as possible turn up expecting to vote without the requisite ID, but perhaps I turn over to the solicitor for comment.
Thank you, Councillor Cartman. So in answer to your first point, the Electoral Commission conducts reviews of every election and issues a post-election report. I see no reason why they won't do the same on this occasion. In terms of your second, do we believe it's without risk? No. Every election comes with some risk. I think the risk on this occasion is heightened, and that's a view shared by the electoral community up and down the country, the Electoral Commission, the AEA. Unfortunately, the regulations that we apply to this election with voter ID and so on have come out very late in the day. I am pleased that, as you say, my own team have been prepared, and once the regulations hit the ground, we have hit the ground running, and we're doing everything we can to get the message out there. But the regulations were very late, so we are playing catch up.
Thank you very much. Councillor James.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is to Councillor Caniford, this question. This council gave me the opportunity and honour of being the youngest Housing Association board member in UK history, something I'm sure that I'll say in any future job interview. And through that experience, I learned something which I wish I could spray paint there on the walls of the council chamber, which is that we need to build more houses here in North Somerset. Addressing housing poverty is one of the most impactful things that we can do in this council. Some of the most difficult casework I've had to deal with, and Councillor Bell will know, is dealing with a former colleague at work who unfortunately developed cancer. He was made homeless and he was unable to find a house while he was alive. Social housing, the social housing list, the banding, there's just not enough social homes in North Somerset, and it's appalling. So my question is, what has this council done to improve the affordable housing pipeline, especially social rent? What targets have been put in place, and have we met these? Have we been going under them? What's in place?
Thank you, Councillor James, for that question. The target in 2019 for affordable housing, which is a mix, of course, of social housing, social rented, and shared purchase, was 150. We immediately in 2020 increased that to 200. But this isn't public knowledge as yet, but we have this year already by Q3 provided 300 affordable houses in North Somerset, which is an incredible result from where we used to be. But even better than that, this is a good news story for the residents of North Somerset. We are likely to hit 400 by the end of Q4. So from 150 target to 400, and I think that is an incredible effort by officers and also our RP delivery partners, because it isn't enough. We're all going to suffer from not being able to provide enough homes, and we've got to do more for it. And what is affordable? Oh, I can't get into that discussion, because we really don't know what is affordable. But the reality is we are doing far better now than we have ever seen in the past, and regardless of whatever happens at the next elections, let's just hope we continue in that vein, The good news is the pipeline for houses, affordable homes coming forward is very good. So at least we can move forward with some hope that more people will get homes than have had them in the past.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Okay. Councillor Cato.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is a question, actually, I reflect that I've been asking for some time. And it relates to the climate emergency and the fact that we've declared one and the fact that we've got a commitment to get to net zero by 2030. And I think for about 3 years I've been asking that we get metrics delivered in the climate emergency section on all the papers we receive. And I think at the last council meeting we agreed in principle that that would happen. So I'm trying to get to the a request, really, that we can, as all of us councillors, receive a progress update on that and when we're likely to actually get metrics on all papers that we receive, so that all councillors can tell whether or not this particular project, this paper or whatever, is going to make the climate situation worse or make it better with regard to essentially the embodied carbon in the build process, in the use process, and then also in the wrapping it up process, because everything has a life cycle. So it's the full life cycle carbon metric, CO2e, that I'm keen to see in these papers. If we don't have it, I'm quite clear we have no way of measuring whether we're going to get to 2030 at net zero. If we do have it, at least we can measure it, and we can then maybe do something more positive about it. Not everything is in our remit. We can't control everything. I do understand that. But we need to be very, very clear about it so that we can then challenge central government or whoever it is to provide us with the resources to make this situation better. Otherwise, we are not going to get there. And all the evidence I'm getting from all of the meetings and conferences that I'm going to, that if we don't take serious action, then we are going to exceed 1.5 degrees C by around 2029 to 2030. So that means we do absolutely have to take it seriously. Now, maybe they're wrong about the figures. Go and do your own research, figure it out. But we need the numbers here in this council, otherwise we are not, in my opinion, doing anything serious about the 2030 objective we've set ourselves. So please, can I request that we actually get a report on it and get a kind of a project plan on when we're actually going to receive these metrics. And I'm not asking for the answer right now, Councillor Petty, it's in your remit. I'm not asking for the answer right now because I get that we haven't got it, but we need it. So that's my request.
Would you like to reply, Councillor Petty?
I will respond, and obviously you're correct, Councillor Cato, you have been asking for this. And, you know, it is down to budget pressures and a serious lack of resource in the Department of the Climate Change. Now other people have thrown around the word claiming that all of our budget and all of our work is suddenly green and is not all the other important things. And as many of you in this administration and who sit in many meetings know, that it is a compromise and the challenges we all face. So, for example, anyone could have voted against a bypass to be built because I don't think it would take, you know, we could have a report commissioned, but equally we would know, because you know that the building of a bypass does take carbon. So this evening, we know that there's mention in the council budgets about our energy choices, and we will and are making active decisions about which energy contracts we look to pursue based on its carbon emissions. At this time, we do not have the data that you're looking for. And I think I also threw back to you last time to find a council who was doing this, because, you know, is anyone else? And I'm not saying that's okay. I'm just saying, like, let's try and find someone who's an exemplar and pinch their stuff. This evening, we've spent time talking about the SPD travel plans. We know that our biggest emissions of our area, which again, we do not have direct control over, but what we have is an ability to leverage some change. What we're doing is we're passing an SPD to try to make sure that when developers build new housing, they're thinking about how the people who will live there will travel differently. So while we're not delivering what you've asked for, what we are seeing, and we've talked about BSIP, what we are seeing is across our whole organisation, each department taking an active role in recognising what levers it has to deliver on trying to get to net zero. And that doesn't mean they've all commissioned private reports, because we could get criticised for sending more work towards specific consultants who deliver, you know, carbon reduction plans. But what we are doing is we are empowering each department that we have to work to set their own directives and priorities with the skills and the powers that they have to deliver behavioural change, community empowerment, resilience, and adaptation to the challenges of climate change. And if you look at the consultation page right now with our council, we've got an EV strategy, we've got a flood risk management strategy. So I'll apologise for not having got what you've asked for in a table of figures, but what we are doing is approaching climate change and climate action from a different angle. So I'm proud of the work that's taking place across the departments, but at this time, those reports don't exist. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Petty. Can I just request that we receive a report saying when it's coming?
What I'd like to do is actually take this back to the officer and also ask that when the next climate change update, which is a 6-monthly report, that there is reference and description as to what actions are taking place, some actions
solid detail,
as
please.
to what will or will not be being scheduled to take place based on the budgets they have.
I really appreciate it, just because it's important, yeah?
Could I just offer just a follow-up, just in terms of, there's some pretty good data around transport decarbonisation in North Somerset. I know because I've been at several meetings where we've looked at it, because obviously 43% of our carbon emissions are from transport. So I'd happily walk you through or set up a meeting with yourself, with officers, to look at some of the intelligence around that, because that does show some trajectories towards zero as we move towards 2030. So happy to bring you on board with some of that stuff.
Thank you, Councillor Hogg, for that helpful jumping in. Thank you. I don't believe we have any... Oh, Councillor Petty, sorry.
It's a question, actually, it's over to Steve Hogg, based on what Councillor Charles raised earlier. With regard... So I wanted to raise that when, Councillor Charles, just you're aware of this, that when the government puts out money, they come with strict restrictions on what it will be delivered, when it will be delivered, and I kind of need all the forms associated, pretty much every dot and T is crossed almost before they give out the money. So I'm kind of, from that point of framework, I'm then coming in with that angle on engagement, but also thinking about userability and DRT. So within that project, I'm thinking about where is that scope on co-design and where is that feedback loop. I think my two questions are, with the use of DRT and actually how people will use it, could potentially the disability access group and or other specific characteristic groups be engaged with to check on how accessible they find this process, because I think it's a really helpful user group to understand. And then the second supplementary is, when do we expect the bus forum to be established? Thank you.
Well, so the second question I think is imminently in terms of the bus user forum. Obviously, there's been a huge amount of recruitment within the transport team, building of a new comms plan, and that news on the bus user forum is, hopefully over the next few days or next few weeks. And I think as part of the bus user forum, I think absolutely those groups that you mentioned there, I think what we need is a careful bit of stakeholder mapping to ensure that we're putting our arms around as much of the community as we possibly can. I'm also really keen to see how DRT is going to help to connect people from more economically deprived areas to get them to access to the commercial services. That's something I'm really keen to see happening. So we're connecting people to their places of work. So I think we do need some deep thinking about which community groups that we want to bring on board as part of that bus user. I don't know how big the bus user forum is going to be, but I think those representative groups, and I think you asking me that question has reminded me of a letter I received from one member of the community on that very topic, actually. And there's a lot of really passionate people in the world of public transport, and they're all coming from a really great place. And I want to make sure that we've got our arms around as much of that as possible.
Any further questions? I believe not. So thank you, everybody. And just to let me remind you again, please hand in a written note of your question at the end of this meeting. Item 13 is matters referred from previous meetings. I believe there are none. Which leads me to my chairperson's announcement. Now, I'm well aware that many of us in this chamber are likely to think this might be their last full council meeting here. It's not the end of our role, but it will, for some certainly, and for some possibly, be the last time. So I just want to use this opportunity for a bit of reflection of our last 4 years here, because I believe they were in many ways unprecedented. We have gone through so much together here, and I just wanted to thank everybody for their role that they've played. Particularly, obviously, I'm really proud of our Rainbow Alliance. I think that has been such a wonderful, positive step in the right direction, but also for really positive contributions from our opposition. Not always, but yes, many times. So yes, I really want to thank you all. I mean, we've gone through a pandemic. Did we ever expect that when we got elected? Nobody did. Do we ever expect climate change to impact on us? There appear to be still some people who think it isn't a serious threat. I think it is even worse than the pandemic. And I think we need to take that into account. And I'm really, really pleased that we have gone to a stage where all our policies take that aspect into account. I know we're not going fast enough, but we are trying our best. Now, I just want to, during the pandemic, clearly, we all had to change. We had to learn to have meetings online, which was quite a challenge for some of us. We had to have lots and lots of people working from home instead of, in fact, at one stage, everybody was working from home. But some positive things came out of it as well. We had our transport people, we had more walking and cycling, and all of a sudden our roads were beautiful and quiet and an inspiration. And there was huge suppressed demand for cycling. It popped out during the lockdown periods. So we know that there is that desire. But the other thing that came out, the really good thing, was all our voluntary sector and working together and forming North Somerset Together, which I believe in a slightly different way is continuing today. So we have learned and we have come through it, hopefully. And I just want to thank everybody who was involved, the transport people, the public health people, our climate emergency team, which is very small, but also our flood prevention officers, because they are clearly working hard to prevent future impact. And I don't know whether many of you are aware, but they were working very hard to prepare North Somerset for a potential big flood event, which we only missed by 4 hours. If the high tide and the storm Eunice had coincided by 4 hours, which at one stage was expected, we would have been flooded again. So just, as a reminder how serious this issue is. Then we had the Ukrainian war, and we rose and welcomed a lot of refugees. We had other refugees housed in our area, and to my mind, they're in a similar situation. It's not just Ukraine, it's other refugees as well, and they should be treated with respect and care. Then we had the cost of living crisis followed, which was sort of, triggered by many things, and I'm sure a lot of people will argue what was the worst cause of this. But we're working very hard to try and cope with that, and there's an awful lot of things that our North Somerset Together team is putting together to help people in this cost of living crisis. So just to say thank you, everybody. Thank you for my time here. I know I won't be here in the next 4 years, but I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I've thoroughly enjoyed working together with all of you. And I believe our leader would like to make an announcement, or no? No?
Only when it comes to item 15. Are we on item 15?
Item 15,
okay,
yes.
Okay. Oh, you made it sound. I was quite scared there for a moment. Thank you, Chairperson. As you say, this is highly likely to be our last council meeting together before May. I'd like to extend thanks to you, Chairperson, for the last year for doing it your way. That's a compliment. And extend those thanks to your predecessors, Councillor Westwood. Thank you. And he's not here. He probably isn't listening either. Councillor Shopland, who served in the role for 2 years, of course, during the pandemic. So sincere thanks to Councillor David Shopland too. I'd like to recognise all those members who are not seeking re-election, who are standing down. Thank you to all of you for your service, to the council, to your constituents, and to North Somerset. Truly, so thank you very much. And that's all I wanted to say, Chairperson.
Thank you. And I believe I wanted to thank our Chief Executive Officer and all our officers, of course. Sorry for forgetting that. I believe you'd like to make an announcement as well.
Yeah, it's beginning to sound like the BAFTAs, isn't it? As we come to the end of the 4-year cycle, I would like to thank all of you, actually, our councillors, for all the work that you do on behalf of our residents. I know it's tough at times, but also for the support that you've given officers and myself, particularly through the challenging period that we've had over the last 4 years, as we continue to improve outcomes for not just our residents, but visitors and businesses as well. I'm also aware that a number of councillors have told me that they're not going to stand again, and I'd like to recognise the decades, because when you add up all the years, it's many decades actually, of service that those councillors have given. So a huge thank you to all of those councillors who have decided to retire or stand down, that have served on council for such a long period of time. But thank you to all councillors. I know you do put yourself out there, as it were, to become a councillor and serve our residents. So thank you for your support over the 4 years.
Okay, back to more mundane things. Item 17 is our forward plan, and I believe that is the leader to present.
Going to make an announcement. No. This is simply the 4-month period commencing 1st of March. It's on the records and for noting. So
okay.
Just
for noting. Okay, that's fine. And have we got any from our policy and scrutiny panel's reports? I believe Councillor Richardson would like to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Chair, and basically I'm going to continue the BAFTA theme. So I'd like to thank all those chairs and members of the scrutiny panels who've worked so hard over the last 4 years to challenge and shape the policies of the Executive and the performance of the Council. And as Peter Crewe mentioned earlier, a lot of work gets done in the committees and the subcommittees that work beneath those. I'd particularly like to mention Mark Crosby, who fortunately can't be with us tonight because he was doing a fine job of chairmanship of ASH before he was unfortunately struck down. I'd also like to thank the officers, of course, who have worked hard to support the panels and have given their time to attend meetings and provide reports, which obviously takes time out of what they're doing as their day job. These are the final reports to Council under this administration, and they summarise the activity of the panels, but they also look forward to the future challenges, which I hope the new people who take over these roles will take forward when their turn comes. I'm sure that any of the chairs here will be happy to answer any questions on the reports now or after the meeting. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. I don't believe there are any other panel reports. So item 19 is our corporate parenting report, as usual, by Councillor Gibbons.
Ooh, can you hear me? Yeah, right. Yes, thank you. I should continue the BAFTA theme as well, and thank all of you, because you've all been corporate parents for the last 4 years, and that's not just councillors, but I know that the officers take their role as a corporate parent in an organisation very, very seriously. And you've done fantastic things for our young people over these 4 years. I will just briefly focus on the actual report, though, and I'll talk mostly about the first section, which is about the participation of our care-experienced young people with us and with other agencies. I think Councillor Charles would be particularly pleased at the level of engagement that we have with our young people, thanks to our wonderful young director, Beth Swan. And those of you who have come to the corporate parenting panel, and like other panels, we have an open invitation to all councillors to attend if they wish. Those of you who have attended will know how vibrant our discussions with the young people are. When we came in 2019, there were only 3 corporate parenting panel meetings a year. We have doubled those, and the alternate meetings are meetings with the young people on themes and matters that they decide they want to discuss. So we've had some very energetic discussions around housing. I think Steve Pritter is smiling, which I think really puts some of our housing providers on the spot. And our most recent panel with the young people was around health, well-being, mental health, and all of those issues that we realize are affecting young people, even more so because of the pandemic, whether it's young people across the country or it's people in care. But we know that this is a huge problem. And I'd have to say that I think our young people were really, really challenging to the agencies that came. They were talking to them and were spoken to as equals in an open forum and really put the points across that they felt mattered. And I don't think we got the answers we directly wanted there and then, but as with housing, we've listened, Councillor Charles, we listened to our young people very, very closely. We listened to our foster carers as well. We listened to, it's not exactly the matter of this report, but in terms of co-production and working together, when it comes to SEND and working with our Parent Carers Forum, it is key to everything we're doing. That co-production is what counts. And we're trying to do this as much as possible with our care-experienced young people, to listen to them and what they want from us. And some of those things we've been able to deliver thanks to this budget, I have to say. I mean, it's of great joy to me that we have been able finally to give council tax exemption to care leavers up to the age of 25. And in addition to that, you know, through the Shared Prosperity Fund, we've managed to fund a dedicated employment, education and training coach for our care experienced young people. which is something that they wanted. They very much wanted either peer support and help to get into work. The other thing we've managed to do through listening to what our foster carers want is to also give them council tax exemption and increased allowance payments for our in-house foster carers, because we really value them and we want to make sure that our young people in care stay in North Somerset with local families. I think that we've been very, very fortunate in that we've had a body of really engaged councillors, and I want to thank all of you who've come up with ideas and offers for our young people. We had a meeting back in July 2020, I think it was, and a number of you came up to us and offered services, offered to collect toys, offered, I particularly remember Councillor Richardson's offer of the pottery classes, which was much appreciated. It's just so many people were there for our young people, so once again I want to thank you all. And I think that, you know, we are getting to be in a much better place. We need to support these young people even more than we're doing now. And I know that you all have them in your thoughts and in your hearts as children and part of your family, and I thank you for that. I won't go into too much detail on the independent review of children's social care, but I think that you will have read that the independent review came back with findings, and as we were saying earlier, sadly, the government and the DFE's social care strategy recognises some of that, but the concern around it is that it hasn't identified the level of funding that the independent review recommended. So it looks as though there will continue to be challenges around children's social care. But I won't go on and be too political because I think we've had enough of that this evening. I just want to thank everybody who's worked so hard for young people, and I want to thank particularly the members of the scrutiny panel for scrutinising everything we've done and also for supporting our work. So thank you, Wendy, and everybody else. And again, thank you all councillors. I'm sure that the young people would join me in wanting to thank you for your interest and care over the 4 years.
Thank you so much, Councillor Gibbons, for your nice, detailed and caring report. Okay, item 20, there are no reports and matters referred from the policy overview and scrutiny panels other than those dealt with elsewhere. There were none. And no reports under item 21, no reports under 22. And under item 23, we do have a report from the Avon. Oh, sorry, Councillor Davis.
Thanks, Chairperson. I mean, the Avon Fire Authority, I'll be very brief. The Avon Fire Authority actually had a meeting last Friday, and the main substance of that was that the council tax precept of the Fire Authority will be a £5 increase for Band D council taxpayers, in line with the change in legislation to allow fire authorities to do a £5 increase. And that there is still a use of reserves to meet the budget next year, but it means it's not a multi-million pound use of reserves if we were at a lower limit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, sorry this is a verbal report, but it was very close to the deadline when we had the meeting. But it was about, obviously, the budget, which members would have already seen, the 6% increase, which was allowed, which was unanimously supported by the panel. But the Chief Constable gave a full report on her plans for the next 12 months, which was very good, and she is very receptive to what we do. She pointed out that we will be at full establishment by the summer, and the Home Office is now funding an additional 80 officers. There's a need, pointed out, that we need to train more officers into being detectives because there is a shortfall there. But we made the point that with the increase in the budget, we want to see these neighbourhood teams, sergeant and officers, operating fully. She's committed to that, but said that it may be not all teams will be fully manned at the moment. Because of the full establishment, almost 40% of officers are new in the last couple of years. So there's still, many of them still training. She's committed to strengthen the Vogue team, which is very important, and to strengthen the teams in the countryside, because obviously there's special teams set up for that. I say she is very receptive. She's keen to progress, and I think her and the OPC office are working well together. The OPC, as I say, presented a full budget, but in the end, members, having grilled both lots for over an hour, agreed to the increase of the 6%, which was allowed, which equals a £15 that we've already approved tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crewe. Councillor Westwood?
Yeah, I'd fully agree with what Councillor Crewe has just said. We're the cannon and ball of the Police and Crime Commission panel. I'm not sure which is cannon, which is ball, but there you go. As this is our valedictory meeting, I'd also like to say a word or two about the curious little local government oddity that is the Police and Crime panel. I'll repeat it again. Our job is to monitor the work of the Police and Crime Commissioner, not to directly make decisions with regard to the operations of Avon and Somerset Police. That can't be said too often, basically. That's the job of the Commissioner. For the last year or so, past year or so, we've had a new one, Mark Shelford. I decided I liked him when he answered an unqualified no to my question as to whether he agreed with the then Prime Minister Johnson and Home Secretary Patel, stating that there had been a 14% fall in reported crime. Of course, this was only if all digital and cyber crime was entirely discounted. If digital and cyber crime is included, then there had been a 14% increase in reported crime. Our Commissioner, of course, is the national lead on digital and cyber crime for commissioners, so he might as well have packed it in if he had agreed with his PM and Home Secretary. I must say that there's been a much more collegiate atmosphere with the new Commissioner. Myself and Pete Crewe and others were involved in the recruitment process for our new Chief Constable, Sarah Crewe, no relation as it were. And the panel was also able to facilitate a positive movement regarding the so-called Lloyds Bank claimants, which had been an issue, very much an issue previously, and which the new Commissioner has very much done a lot to address. So there you go. I must admit I've enjoyed my 3 and a bit years on the Police and Crime panel, and we'll see what happens next, won't we? Take care.
Okay. I don't believe we have any report from the WECA Joint Scrutiny Committee.
No.
No. Okay, item 24, I believe our solicitor will present the revised draft municipal calendar for 23-24.
Chairperson, just to say, obviously you've approved the municipal calendar previously, but given the extra bank holiday and the conflict that gives me with the election, I've written to all members telling you that we have to put back the annual meeting by a week. So that's reflected in this revised one, along with a couple of other changes that flow from that. So if you're looking for putting dates in diaries, the optimistic amongst you, if you refer to this one rather than the previous one.
I believe I'll be there anyway. So is there any other urgent business? Oh, yes, Councillor Crewe?
Madam Chair, I can't let this go. Nick already knows this. I can't let this go without saying, if I'm successful, I'll be here. If not, I won't. But the 23rd of May is my 80th birthday. So if I'm here, you can wish me happy birthday. If I'm not, please remember it.
Cakes for everybody, Pete.
On that note, you're only slightly ahead of me. So on that note, I declare this meeting closed.